Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Kallenberger with Graphic Imaging. Today's session is going to be a discussion about ransomware, the evolution of ransomware. Our Charles Berger will be a specialist. Will be taking us through that. After the recent attacks in Clark County, this is a very timely session indeed. Graphic Imaging is your partner in digital imaging, digital conversions, data storage. We've been in Las Vegas for over 25 years providing quality service. And we thank you for your time today. Charles, would you like to go ahead and kick off?
Yes, thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. I've been working with Graphic Imaging now for over 13 years, and I have to tell you, as one of our strongest partners, when they came and said, listen, we've got customers that have got very, very high concerns about ransomware attacks because of our customers' data sensitivity, we thought it'd be a fantastic thing to go and put on this webinar for you today. So what we're going to talk about is exactly what are we seeing as the trends of the recent attacks. And everyone knows that we've got some pretty high profile ones. We not only see them daily, but we also see them locally and affecting our own communities. And one thing that's become a very, very common point about this is that everybody that has been attacked thought they were strong enough, thought they had checked, dotted every I and crossed every T, and was confident that they had done enough. And what we found out is that where they think they're the strongest is exactly where they're going to get hit. So we're going to be talking about, of course, hey, that's me. Sorry, I should have put that up earlier. I'm Charles Berger. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Solutions here at Nexsan. And, prior to being here at Nexsan, was at Sun Microsystems Federal, and really been in that compliance space now for over 30 years here. So it's been a pretty impressive run. So let's talk about ransomware. As I said, more and more companies, more organizations, more city, county data centers, et cetera, are getting hit. And overall, the impact has been quite devastating. If we take a look at one that's obviously, as many of you are close to Nevada, that you saw the MGM Grand, which not only affected MGM, but also the Bellagio and other hotels in its chain. This is something that ought to scare everybody on the phone right away, because this wasn't a very, very, like, oh, wow, they were diabolical. They went in through a thermostat. Now, the hackers, which were part of a group called Scattered Spider, actually have been used social engineering, meaning they've been going to websites like Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, and they found employees of the organizations. And what they did with MGM was they went and called into MGM's own tech support, claiming to be an employee that needed help logging in. And what they'd exposed is that MGM, throughout all of its firewalls, all the cybersecurity it had, the people on the phone never hung up and said, okay, let me go call, in this case, Lisa. I'm going to use you as an example. I know you're on the phone with us today. Let me call Lisa back on the phone that I know that is registered to her. They didn't do that. They actually went and created a new login, gave the credentials, gave everything over the phone, and confirmed to the cell phone of the hacker, which then gave them an account on the network. It took them just a matter of days then to go and put their malware in, where it was able to control and collect all the user credentials for all the administrator accounts. They were able then to start, of course, we all know about it now, go and start downloading customer data, which right now is in the over the 140 million accounts have been breached. But the big thing about this was the overall impact. The ransomware request, in hindsight, was rather low, but the impact to MGM was over $100 million lost. Now, when we look at this, we say, well, wait a minute, an organization like this truly must have had redundancies and backups of those backups. What happened? And it seems as though that all of these security precautions were completely made null and void by a simple mistake of, wait a minute, we should be doing, if someone calls in and says that they're Charles Berger, they're Lisa DeSantos, we better go and actually verify that by calling them back on the phone number we have registered. We probably shouldn't give that out. And that's something that I think we're all learning from this, because it's quite an easy mistake. But the city of Dallas was actually something a little bit different. The city of Dallas, as I know many municipalities are on the phone today, was that this system was breached by a small Windows exploit on April 27th of this year. And between April 27th and, believe it or not, May 3rd, so you're talking 28th, 29th, 30th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, you're talking 6 days, okay? In 6 days, they had already gone and had all of the admin credentials, all the user accounts of all the administrators, all the logins of every server, and were able to start opening up ports that could go and download basically let's just say monitoring tools and reporting tools that were legitimate Microsoft tools, but now they're being used by a foreign entity, to the organization. So what they were able to do is, just like MGM, get all of the user credentials, open up ports on the servers, and then steal data, and then start encrypting servers. And one thing we're going to talk about this, and this is one of the reasons for the call today with the number of graphic imaging end users here, is that every single end users on all their backup data, that they had backup jobs upon backup jobs upon backup jobs, had all been deleted. So there was nothing to go back to. There was no, hey, let me go back to the snapshot, gone. Let me go back to my on-prem backup, gone. Let me go to my cloud backup, gone. Because they logged in as the administrators with the administrator credentials, and when you tell the backup software, delete this, please, or I go to my cloud storage and say, yes, I'm done, delete that, I'm ordering you to, the cloud storage or the storage device you have is going to do exactly what it says, which is, oh, you want me to delete that? Okay, and brought it to its knees. Now, if you take a look at this, the one thing I want to bring up, because it's quite staggering for the city of Dallas, in a matter of 6 days, to undo this breach took 55,365 man hours. That's the equivalent of a full-time employee working 6 years. 6 days, it took 6 years of man hours to go and undo this. That's basically otherwise 2,306 days for anybody that's counting. And you have to understand that the group that attacked them, which is called the Royal Hacker Squad, goes typically after city, county data and health. Why? It's critical infrastructure. And if critical infrastructure goes down, we all know you will pay anything to get it back up. And in this case, it was thousands and thousands of hours of not only internal, but also external vendor support. I think the total was 1,671 from the vendors they had from various, Microsoft and other storage providers, 14,158 just internal, and just the city alone, all the departments, everybody working 39,590 hours. Now, I don't know how any of you are staffed, but that's a pretty big task, but it's something necessary in order to return services. So what are we seeing? We're seeing that if all of you on the phone, if you remember, years ago, we used to all kind of look and say, wow, I wish I'd bought Bitcoin back then. Remember, Bitcoin was about $20,000, a piece. It was rising in 2018. We thought, wow, this would have been a great investment. But unfortunately, that was the premier, the way that the ransomware attackers actually exchanged money for their services. And what we realized is that they were saying, hey, I want $20,000, I want $50,000. And more people were getting effective backup technologies. They were using disk to disk, disk to tape. They were going to cloud. And the ransomware criminals said, gosh, we're just not getting paid. Where are we going wrong? Well, think about this. If I'm a ransomware attacker, I'm in your network, I've done all this work, even if it's just for 6 days. We do have some accounts that have been breached for 6 or 9 months, and then the attack starts. But they realized that, wait a minute, what if we could delete the backups? What if we could go and delete this? So therefore, they have to pay us. So basically, the ransomware games, in a very, very diabolical move, went after people on the web, and these people are the top graduates of MIT and other respectable Cal Polytech, et cetera, people in IT departments that have now gotten jobs in the backup software, whether it's Veeam, whether it's Commvault, whether it's Veritas, et cetera. And now if I'm that criminal and I'm logging in and I'm like, hey, look I've got Lisa. This is the keys to the kingdom. This is the passwords of every single console. I now throw that lateral and say, hey, here's the network. Here's everything you need. Go cancel all their backups. go delete the backups. And when you're done, let me know, because that's when I'm releasing the payload and we're going to start we're starting to encrypt data. We saw this massive shift happen early on when the first large ransom attack was really, it made dollar figures. It made the headlines because it made all our heads spin. And that was Garmin. And Garmin had said, repeatedly, we've got some of the greatest people on the, in IT and security. We think we're very secure. We don't have this. Well, a $50 million total fine later, they realized, wow, this is a problem. And we've seen this grow throughout COVID as the criminals realized $50 million in one hit. We need to do this even more. So when you look at, let's go and get $10 million. Yeah, they're not want to pay. Okay, well, it'll take them $100 million now to go and redo this. You're realizing you'd better have a plan, because everybody, I bet on this phone today, believes that their IT is completely solid and it's backed up and they've got a backup that they could immediately go to. And what every single organization, including Dallas, including MGM, found out is that when they went back to those backups, there was nothing there. Okay. So it's not just that. And it's also the selling of data. By the way, in case any of you were a guest of the MGM Grand, your data can be bought, all 142 million records, for the cool price of $2,900 on the dark web. All the personal, your home address, your credit card info, how long you stayed, everything about those 142.6 million users is available for $2,900 right now. So you understand, sometimes it's not just the breach, it's the value of the data, and now what it's going to cost all of those users to potentially have some type of a identity theft protection, and the ongoing worry that are you going to have your mortgage being stolen? Is your title going to be stolen? Anything else? So we've talked at length with our partners, and because people believe, and many of you, again, if you have got IT departments on the phone that are saying, we've got Veeam, we've got Commvault, trust me, we're backing this stuff up. We are good. Right now, take a look at that figure. Only 16% of organizations avoided paying ransom. That's down from 19. But what does that tell you is that 84% of organizations that do have the backups, they do have the disk to disk, the snapshots, the on-site copy, the cloud copy, they end up paying, or they go out of business. It was neat. I was with Lisa at a show in Palm Springs, and we asked one of the attendees, how long are you allowed to come back up? And he said, well, they're hoping that we could be back up in 10 weeks. And I said, well, let me ask you this. How are you going to continue to pay your employees? And he looked at me and said, why? And I said, because I have to tell you, at the start of the month, in just 2 weeks, I need to pay my mortgage. And if you're unable to pay me and you're prepared to be down for 10 weeks, but not pay me, I'm going to have to, as an employee, go somewhere else. And so is everybody else. No one's got the deep pockets to go and say, hey, this is great. I know my company can't pay me. They were hit. So you have to start thinking about the contingencies of, if you're an organization and you are hit, what's going to happen to your trained employees, the people you need to run the organization, if you've not adequately budgeted for continuing payroll for possibly 2, 4, 6 months down the road, because that's the problem. So what can we do? I'm not here to tell you there's all doom and gloom and there's no solution and the sky is falling. That's not what I'm here to say. What I'm here to say is that there are solutions out there. And matter of fact, we were one of the first companies to say, Veeam, we've got a rock solid storage solution for your backups. And we've also said that to Commvault. I'll give you an example. Many of you on the phone, and I wish I could take a survey right now, but I don't have it up. But think about this. Veeam came out themselves with a software version called version 11 of March of 2020. And like every IT department, they wanted to get, or I should say IT provider, they wanted to get a leg up on the market to say, we've done it. We've cracked the code. We know how to beat ransomware gangs. Woo! They were clapping their hands. The challenge is that they said, now we make our Veeam backups immutable, and that if you say have it for 6 months, I work with your local time server, and if someone logs in as you and it's only been 2 days, I don't let them delete that. And this was the biggest mistake Veeam could have ever made. They wish they would have kept that to themselves. Think about this, to everybody on the phone. if I'm a ransomware hacker and I want to make $10 million in a very despicable way, and I go and log in and I have my ransomware gang, my backup guy next to me, and he goes, oh, look, they have Veeam 11. He's not walking away. He's saying, well, we've got all their admin credentials. Let's go find their network time server. I've got the login to that. Let's change that to 2033, not 2023. Now go log into Veeam, go destroy the backups. And literally by September of that year, the CEO of Veeam came out and said, if you have not got your backups on an immutable platform, we cannot guarantee you of anything, because they realized customer after they released this, we're still losing data. And they realized that by maybe talking too much about their own, strengths, it was like basically saying, I've got bulletproof windows on my house, and I've got fireproof doors, and I've got a key underneath the right side of my welcome mat in case I forget mine. You shouldn't have said that, because then it's like, oh, I don't need to worry about all that. I can just use this key you left in a very, very easy to find place. So as we take a look, Veeam now has come out and said just this year, 93% of the attacks they're seeing are going after their backup. So this isn't just Charles Berger. This isn't Nexsan. This is now industry-wide. And customers are saying, but wait, what do I do? Well, let's go and talk about something. And this is something all of you need to be having the discussion with respect to your internal teams. And it's about your organization. You've probably heard a term called data security posture management. And it's basically meeting to see, listen, what is the risk level we are ready to go and assume, or what is tolerable to us? Is it, can we lose a week of data? Can we lose 2 weeks of work, 10 weeks of work? What would happen to us if we are a city county government, if we're a water department, if we're a tax and revenue, if we're the land records? Well, how long could we be down before we realize we need to raise the white flag and say no mas? Because you realize that it's not just making sure that your employees make the best decisions, but you need to understand what the data risk is. MGM had done everything. They had put every security protocol in place, but it was a simple phishing call by somebody who'd go in and study. And something that could be happening to me right now. For all I know, someone is calling up US Bank and saying, hey, do you have an account named Charles Berger? Great, because that's me. Here's where I live, because they found that on the web. You can Google my email and things like that. But it's very easy to spoof phone numbers. But it's, we need to be taking extra steps. So with data security posture management, the reason we're bringing this up is many of you on the phone have to deal with regulatory compliance and data access governance. Not only that you've kept a file for 10 or 15 or 30 years or forever, but also who's had access to it. And the people on the phone that this will affect the most are people that have to deal with evidentiary data, video surveillance data, crime scene data. And you think about this. If I've got a piece of data and I'm the Dallas-Fort Worth Police Department, and I've got a piece of data that proves, or they've got a piece of data on me, as I'm going to pretend to be the criminal here. I went in, I stole a car, but they've got it on video, and I did some other crime. But that data is now encrypted by a ransomware gang. The Dallas-Fort Police goes and unencrypts it and says, here you go. All that the district attorney and the defense attorney need to say is, I'm not doubting that that's my client, but we believe there's 5 photos, not 2. Where are the other 3? I don't know. Well, do you have any proof that there were 5? No. Do you have any proof that there weren't? No. Has it been under your control the entire time? Well, it was, except for those 3 months, it was encrypted by a third-party gang. By that alone, all your chain of custody has been lost. And the 2 pictures you have maybe on a surveillance camera tying me to the crime now have to be thrown out because the police department's lost the chain of custody. That doesn't just affect you and me. It affects every criminal that has, is waiting for their day in court. Now, maybe it's a piece of evidence that shows that you're innocent. That'd be pretty important if suddenly that were locked up and lost or misplaced. So we have to realize that maintaining chain of custody, ensuring that privacy and compliance, these are things that now are taking the forefront of every organization, where it used to be predominantly banks and healthcare that were the most strictly regulated. We're now finding many, many more organizations and state and local governments that now realize This is the minimum. I cannot have anything but this when I look at new IT purchases, when I look at new storage, when I look at new management. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a product called the Assurine. The Assurine is a product, and I've shortened this up because we know we had it time, but the Assurine is a product that has been a secure, what you call next generation active archive. Was introduced, believe it or not, in 2006 to the market by Nexsan. We own the full IP to it, all 100%. It's Nexsan through and through. But there's one thing that we can hang our hat on that right now I have not found another storage vendor that can claim the same thing. And that is since 2006. So check my math. I believe that's 17 years going on 18. We've never lost a file, period. We have never had a customer lose any data at all, whether it was from a technical malfunction called silent data corruption, a RAID controller going bad on one of the storage systems, or malicious attack. I've even had customers hit with hurricanes. And because we always build the systems in two for primary and DR, it's not there. But it's the 9 different layers of security we have built into this as well that I'm not going to put in print. I'm not going to put on the web and say, hey, by the way, here's what we do. Here's a map to get around everything we have. No, we make it difficult for criminals, and nobody's ever breached us yet. So this is one of the things that we do. When you go and deploy an Assurine into your environment, and it's easy to load. We have a client that loads on any Windows server, whether it's physical or virtual. If you've got any type of server with SAN storage, whether it's Fiber Channel or iSCSI connected or even server internal, we simply put a client that we co-wrote with Microsoft on that server instance while running middle of the day, while people are accessing data, and you as the administrator can log in and say, yeah, by the way, this directories folder or this folder that has to deal with long-term records of the city that I work for. I'd like to have this kept forever. Basically, when you find that tab, you right-click on it. You say, yes, I'd like to have this kept forever. Tell you what, I'd like to have it encrypted at rest. It's a checkbox. I'd like to make sure all versions are maintained. And matter of fact, there's even a feature that we can have that can save you a lot of money on tier 1, which is, listen, I need to keep this forever, but if this has not been accessed in nearly, why don't we say, if this hasn't been accessed in a year or 90 days, do I really need to have it on my fastest tier of storage? The next thing you need to do is click apply. And real time, that application that we put, again, I said it shouldn't say application. It runs as a certified Microsoft service. So it's not an application that I have to worry about your different version levels of software that you're running, et cetera. But what happens is that it starts going and giving each file a unique digital fingerprint. And upon ingestion of that, and when we get that file and fingerprint, we then send it to the first Assurine. It will go then and ingest that file and look at it and scan it bit for bit. Does it match the fingerprint that was created at the source, at the server? Maybe it's one of Graphic Imaging servers where they've gone and put a scanned document in. It's gone and maintained it, ascertaining that what it has is 100% authentic to what was just stored by the team at Graphic Imaging and their scanners. We then serialize the file. We then encrypt the file, if that's what we chose in our example. We store the file, and then we do something that no one else does, and we recall it from disk and say, this is what we intended to save. Is this actually what ended up on disk? And by doing just this simple check, which nobody else does, what we've done is ascertained and guaranteed that on the initial write to our system that we have 100% data integrity guaranteed throughout that chain. So we talked about chain of custody before. I've maintained that from the minute and that second that that file was saved and brought in from an end user or an application, we instantly gave it that fingerprint. We instantly ingested it, checked it, not only encrypted it, stored it, but also verified it. We don't just do that. We then go and replicate it over the wire, encrypted, and then do the same rigorous integrity audit. Now, you might be saying, great, okay, but why does this mean, what's this mean to me? Well, you see, right now, if I were to go and say, and walk into any of the IT directors into your offices right now and say, hi, I've got the person that ranks above you. I don't know who it might be. But let's say I've got the person that ranks above you that signs your paychecks and says, listen, are you prepared to sign on the line right now today It's Wednesday the 18th. Are you prepared to sign a line that every file that you've been entrusted to save is A, here, and B, good? And if it's not, if we find that there's files missing or files corrupted, you would lose your position. I bet a lot of you would say, wait a minute, I'm doing the best I have with the resources I have, but I can't make that guarantee because, quite frankly, I store the data, I replicate the data, I've taken backups with a backup company and they've stored it on a medium, but everything has got possible, areas of corruption. I don't know if I do that. With the Assurian, and I know I've been sitting on this slide for a while, but bear with me, the Assurian actually answers those questions. Right now, as we speak, every Assurian I've ever sold since 2010 when I joined the company is doing this slide. And the reason I left it up is this. If I said there were 450 million files in your organization or 1 billion files, how could you either A, find the teamwork and the time to go and A, count those, and then open up every file and compare it to a paper solid document, an original, so to speak, and compare to make sure that they were good, that there was no degradation? It'd be nearly impossible. For the Assurian, it's something that every system that we've ever sold and is plugged in right now is doing while we speak. And that is that in case, remember, I'm selling the system as a pair, I go and I verify that I've got 450 million files. My DR site says 450 million. Great, let's count them. So if I get to file number 5 and I realize that in my registry, I should have a file on this RAID set exactly in this spot and it's not there, I don't panic. I'll reach out to my partner unit, my DR site, or vice versa, and say, I need file number 5 and the fingerprint sent back to me. If the DR site's missing file 227 million, I will send that file back to them. All right. This is happening real time right now. When we get done, we've made sure that 450 million files are in both locations. But the next goal, remember, was, is it any good? So look at that bottom half of the page. We actually go and start opening up every file once we've ascertained that and guaranteed that there are 450 million files in my example at both locations. I start opening up every file and my DR site starts opening up every single file. I'm going to use Lisa as an example. She's a great partner. She's got a unit. She's the primary. I'm the DR. She's scanning and she finds a file that on one of her documents that's saved, it's created a pixelization that was not there when it was saved. The Assurian will note that something small as a single bit flip has happened, and it will quarantine that file, and she'll request of me, or I'll request of her, that file to be sent back so we can repair it. You see, many other providers say, well, we've got redundancy and we've got integrity at the hardware. Nexsan is the only provider that we have integrity at the data level, where we've got dual RAID controllers, we've got redundant fans, redundant network ports, and we've got redundant disks. That's all for availability. What we actually do is look at the individual files and self-heal to make sure that if anyone ever did come to you, or you've got a piece of information that's potential evidence that could, either help or let a criminal free, you're guaranteed that you're going to have it where you had it, when you had it, in the format you had it, and even in the event of tempest of change. So the way that the Assurian works is that we're always maintaining 2 copies of the files. We've got our primary site, and we've got a remote site. We've got active replication happening between the two. So in my example with Lisa, if she's in Nevada and I'm in Wisconsin, I can go and ingest data here, and it will cross-replicate to her systems. As she's saving, it will save it here. So we've got great geographic distribution of our data and separation. That protects us in the event of we've got customers on the coast that are worried about tsunami or earthquake, et cetera, in California. In Florida, it's always hurricanes. In the Midwest, tornadoes. Everybody's got their different weathers, but this gives the ability of saying, well, I didn't just buy 2 and one just sits there. No, I could actually use the 2 if I've got data sites or even across town, maybe one at the fire department, one at City Hall, and I can have data being done because both are, secure operations. Here's the one thing that we've got that has made a very, very easy proposition for our customers to own, and why we have such a high customer retention rate, and so we have automatic failover and fail back. The one great thing that we had about the Assurian application, our FSW, our file system watcher, was that it is aware that these 2 sites, your primary and secondary, are, I'm using air quotes here, your archive. It knows that both A and B exist. So if I'm looking and saving data to the primary, and I'm also retrieving data from the primary, and for some reason I can't access it, it automatically redirects my read request to the DR site without any of you having to say, Charles, why are you so upset? What do you mean? I'm at a wedding. I just left for lunch. What do you mean you can't get your data and you've got a court case? No, don't have to worry about that. If for some reason I cannot reach the site that I'm designated to read, the client automatically fails over and gets the rights from the DR site. It'll notify the administrators that, by the way, I've lost connection to that client. I'm having trouble retrieving data. And, emails will go by letting you know, maybe it's something of a small glitch. Maybe it was a network outage. Maybe there's something wrong. Maybe you've lost power. Nonetheless, administrators are notified immediately. And this is something that helps you stay on top of your IT department. Now, we talked about the self-authenticating objects. We've got that fingerprint, we've got the files, we've got the redundancies, and they're constantly being checked, double-checked, etc. The thing about this is that if I've saved a document, and let's say I call it cburger.xls, I go in 5 days from now and save it again, the assuring doesn't delete the data that I wrote today. It says, well, I'm keeping this data that I wrote today on the 18th. I'm keeping that for 10 years. Oh, and here's a net new version on the 23rd. I need to keep that for 10 years as well. The reason you're going to see that this is so important in the fight against ransomware is actually tenfold in its output, or I should say its capabilities. And it's that we keep an unalterable access audit log of every single file. And because of security, you might have HR files, you might have tax revenue, you might have shares video, you might have evidence, you might have court data, you might have gaming type info where you've got customer data. We can keep everybody's data sets separate by root key encryption. It's a technology called multi-tenancy, Tenancy. We've had this built into the system since 2006. While other people have tried to segment networks, we can actually separate the data. We can make sure that nobody who logs in can go sideways and look at other people's data, which is typically what happens when, ransomware criminals get in. They cannot see the data. There's nothing that talks directly to our Assurian except that client. Nobody stores directly to it. I basically am watching your existing storage, existing servers through trusted relationships, and I'm even on my own domain, so criminals don't even know I exist. They have no idea that I'm even there because none of the end users are on my domain. It's just me. And that's why, again, one of the strongest points that in 17 years of customers getting hit and having attacks, we've saved city county data centers from Florida to Canada, all protected, and California, I should say, all protected in the event of attacks or natural disasters. And we've been able to go and protect people's data. Now, why am I talking about all of this data integrity and what it means towards securing your backups? And, how are we bringing this full circle? Well, think about this. If I've already got a solution today that is ingesting your your unstructured data, all those images, all the tax records, all the Excel, Word documents, contracts, licenses, inspections, etc., and home directories. But if I can go and make sure that if today my files were get encrypted tomorrow, my system won't delete those files. It would just say, oh, look, cburger.xls changed. Just like in my example before, I don't know if that change is malicious or intentional. But the net result is that I can go and I can maintain all your policies. I can go and say, with you, our engineers work with you, on the initial setup. If you've got whether it's an application that says this file needs to be kept for 5 years, this one's forever, this one's 10, we can uphold all of those different rules and rights without leaving it just being an open storage device that could be corrupted by anyone. The best part is that in the event of someone coming in and trying to encrypt your data, I can say, look, the encryption started at the top of the hour. Well, good news. How about we go and do the entire file system? We can go and put back what's called the file system as it relates to shortcuts. Shortcuts are 0 kilobit in size. All right. It provides access to all the data, where it was, how it was, when it was for all your end users and applications. But I can restore that access in a matter of minutes to petabytes of data, not 30 terabytes an hour and let's rebuild. How long is this going to be down? It removes your recovery point from days to literally hours. We've had healthcare networks hit, and the longest part for that end user or those end users was rebuilding a virtual machine so I could basically rebuild the file system of everything that was sold or everything that was stored up to that minute, up to 59 minutes, 59 seconds before the ransomware attack started, again, at, let's say, at the top. What this does is it ensures that we're keeping your data retention policies. It ensures that we have your sensitive data, your chain of custody being maintained. We've got your peace of mind also that no matter what, nothing can violate these rules. And the best part is we're Veeam and Commvault certified on our software that we've got to ingest. So in the event someone did log in to Commvault and Veeam and try to change your local time servers, the great part is that Nexsan does not work just with your local time servers. We work with 2 time servers that are not in your control. One's at our offices, one is the national time server in Denver, Colorado. As we talked about the file printing and serialization, we talked about compliance, we talked about the tamper-proof. One thing you have to note is that in the event of someone gaining all access to your network, that still doesn't let them change it. Even if they grabbed your credentials to the assuring and let's say, hey, what is this? They cannot go and delete data that if you said keep this for 10 years, they can't delete it after only a year or after only a day. Even if they went and said, well, I want to change my policy, now delete it. The assuring is going to say the rules of the day were to keep this for 10 years. And if they try to change your local time server, unless you're local and the 2 remote that are not in your control are completely in sync, you as the administrator get a note that there's a time mismatch. And until this is fixed, nothing can be deleted. So you start getting notifications from the unit itself. The one neat thing about it is that you may not even have the assuring being under attack. But if someone changes your local time protocol, you'll get an email from Nexsan, an alert, and you'll probably send it to tech support, and they're going to say, well, do you realize your time server changes went into effect a little while ago? No one should be messing with that, it's probably going to say, and you're probably going to note that because of this, you're going to be giving a heads up immediately if someone is going and attacking your network. So since we can integrate with your backups, we can set rules. I'm going to actually go back one slide. We can set rules that say, keep my daily backups no matter what for 60 days. Keep my weekly backups for 4 months. Keep my monthly backups for 6 months. And if somebody comes in and says, hey, delete my backups, they can delete anything they want on the server. But because we've got it ingested and protected, and you've got rules set up, we are exactly that last line of defense. Judy, who's in our marketing, she said this years ago, the assuring is the last line of defense in the event of someone internal causing a problem or someone external causing a problem. It's your get out of jail free card with respect to IT so that you don't pay hundreds of millions of dollars and put the organization that you're working with in risk.